That's where you probably
100%.
will use the 20 grand.
Yeah.
Whereas if you could just do a couple and then find a way to make your numbers work and model it out that way, then you can keep adding, gravy. Everything else is the cherry on top, so to speak. Because if you can make it work with just turning a couple, okay, my numbers are okay, we can be at a reasonably close to break even. Now we got time to work through the rest.
Well said. Yeah. And that's why we're very entrenched on who our clients are using on the mortgage side, right? As long as they're experts, good, because that's where it's going to come in handy. They're going to run the models on, if you do 3, what's it going to look like? So how many do you need to get for us to do X, Y, and Z with real world numbers? Because then you can make that risk assessment. Then you can look at it, right?
Welcome back to REI Hot Seat. Andrew Hines here with David Hulshof, and we are talking purpose-built deal?
Purpose-built.
All right, purpose-built 12-plex. And this one's going against the grain a bit because, you've heard Jake start with it, and then David and Zach, they all say the same thing. Boring real estate. We're in the age of boring real estate, which generally speaking, I think we are.
Agreed.
But this one isn't the boring package. This is different. This is the go get 'em, the less conventional tenant turnover methodology. So we're going to talk about that. Why should people think that that's a viable opportunity in this day and age, Dave?
Well, it's getting more and more challenging, but I think we have built some stuff. I'll show you when we get into it on some ways to kind of mitigate risk. So just for some context, this is somebody's deal that they may be offloading. Okay. So some numbers are assumptions, don't have the full data, so we're working on it, but the rent roll is accurate. And this is the old model, right? Like, how do you buy a building at well below market cap rates and make sense of it? And
why is that the play? I mean, I'm just seeing in the little bottom of the screen here, like 500, 600. There's no way there's a $150 lease amount.
That's the superintendent.
Okay,
yeah, which is worthy of chatting about. We'll highlight.
So there you go. Okay, now you have the whole, pretty much as much as you need to know right off the bat. Every rent is so far away from market rent that it's disgusting.
These are actual rents, dude. These are fabricated. Some of the other stuff, the expenses and whatnot. But so here's funny. If you buy it at 150 a unit, purpose built in London, you're at a 1.45 cap.
For context, I mean, obviously that cap's ridiculous, but for context, what would these go per unit if it was just a regular on the market purpose built 12-plex?
Like with normal rents?
With normal market rents, in the ballpark of market rents.
Yeah, I mean, at least 200. I mean, well, over on the right side here, if we put a 5.5 cap, which I think is high given the market, at market rents.
Yeah, then price per door is 250 plus.
250s. Yeah. 250.
So a huge lift potential. So this is more for that active investor that's not jaded from doing it a few times and realizing how much work it is.
It's a hard look. It's a hard topic, right? Because there's a lot of people that used to do an N13, which is, if people who don't know, is a rent eviction, right?
Yeah. So you do the N13, and then I know a guy who's been on my podcast talked about this in detail. Kyle Ford said that he would, when they moved out, when they're at their truck, meet them out there and say, hey, what's it going to take to get an N11 signed?
Right.
N11 is the mutual one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So again, my vision of it and what I think has been historically a little bit better for the mass populace is, instead of going an N13, you just start with the conversation of, there's an opportunity for us to probably make a deal here. Is it going to cost you more? Yes. But the theory of going with an N13, kicking them out, and then trying to negotiate, it sets the framework that you're pretty much at odds.
Yeah.
And typically in a negotiation, in any framework, if we're not seeing eye to eye on in any regard, it's harder. So,
well, it is partially how you deliver it. Like, if you go in there and like the seller's given, or the tenant's giving you a bunch of things that are wrong, and hey, look, Mr. Tenant, like, we want to fix this. Like, our vision for this building is not to keep it where it is. Realistically, I can't have you in here while I do it. And then you kind of get the, I hear you, I know this is a pain, and don't let it be at odds. But I agree, there's a way to do it where you're going to be completely at odds.
And it's well said. Like, everything exists on a spectrum, right? So is the building actually in need of repair? Like, I know some things that Kyle did, they truly needed it, right? So that's not a nonsensical comment. It's like, look, this building is such bad disrepair. We're gonna have to do all the plumbing, as an example. It's unlivable.
Yeah,
right?
you can't live in that
to leave, right? That's fair.
Yeah,
That's
and
reasonable.
where he would get them, and he would just say, like, I really don't know how long it's going to take. Like, it could be 6 months, could be a year and a half.
Yeah.
Like, you know, knowing the way things go, we just don't know. And I take it you probably don't want to move twice. Is there a way that we could work this out where you can get on fresh start and And you know, in his case, I think it was like a couple grand by the time they were out, right?
Because when
once they're already out, they're
more apt to.
Yeah,
it's the moving aspect. But from what I know of this building, it's not dilapidated.
It's not dilapidated. It's really that's going to be a different angle on this.
So it's like the yin yang, because it's like you know, that's a great news story as an acquisition because you're buying a better building, but you know, presumably that strategy might not be as effective.
Yeah. And normally you'd think you're going to get a certain amount of just turnover on a building, but with the rents as low as they are,
right?
I feel like these people would hold on for dear life.
So I'll show you how we structure something here, because one of the things is obviously you go through cash for keys. Right.
Yeah.
And the more, and this is an obvious comment, but the more cash for keys you pay, the higher the likelihood someone's going to leave. Right?
Yeah.
So if we go to, and this is a little bit of a robust numbers here, but this is us assuming we turn every tenant, right? And by turning tenants, I'm talking about cash for keys, renovating units, and then renting them at market. So I've built in $30,000 a unit for renovations per unit, and then $20,000 per unit for cash for keys.
Right.
That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money. I've never heard of anyone budgeting that.
On average, we're talking two.
Yeah.
Some are going to go for $5,000. They'd be happy, right? You're averaging 20. That's a lot of money.
So I take it you would do the first round and see who bites at 5%. And then you slowly work your way up over time.
Like the key to success is getting to know their pain points and working with them, right? The big ones are, where am I going to go? So whether it's yourselves or you hire people to help them find a place to go, paying for their moving, right? Nobody wants to actually move. So again, it's just filters. Is the likelihood you're going to hit 12 out of 12 going to happen? Probably not.
Probably not. But if you got 9 or even 8, you know, you're probably making a meaningful impact on the building's value.
For sure. And so,
and do you think, just before you move on, do you think it's reasonable that like a property manager can manage these conversations, or is this like you, the owner, asset manager?
I just had this chat with a client. He was using property managers. He took over. Way better success.
Yeah, I feel like it's just so hard to trust a property manager to have those kind of conversations. You know, the whole, like the adage that, you know, nobody can do it as well as I can. And a lot of people feel that way. A lot of business owners do. But that's a very negative attitude because it hurts. That attitude hurts.
And so we do have some contacts that are fantastic. And they are more of the softer approach as well. One group that we use, they actually will go through each unit beforehand, get to know the tenants, and then tell you, I think it's likely we could do this. So they actually went through an 8 unit and said, we won't have traction here, right? It's $3,000 per unit is their cost for a successful turn. But they have the whole system. They have people to help you find a new place to go. They have the movers. They have the whole conversation, the package.
Yeah.
So it works. Right?
They help them. Yeah. They're only paying out $3,000.
You pay them $3,000 for their work, and then you pay the cash for keys.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah.
So, you know, it's all dependent. But if you have the ability and you're reasonably good with words, and you know your care meters through the roof, you could probably do some good work.
That's the challenge, though. How do you scale if that's your model? Like, I think for somebody early in their real estate investing career that knows enough, they have the money to do it, but they're not yet jaded. They could go in and crush with a model like this. Yeah. Or if you're newly into the industry, like as a full timer, you might be keen on doing that. Yeah.
Like what ends up happening is the tenants you start working with them, they start talking to the other tenants. Yeah. So, you know, the 5,000s turn to 10,000s pretty quickly. Even if you get them to sign NDAs, they're still going to talk, right? Yeah. So to your scaling point, if you go do a 50 unit and things get exponentially more expensive, you know, are you going to be in trouble by unit, you know, 10 and 30?
Well, at one point or another, you're going to have to either tell them hey, that's it, we're capped. And they may call the bluff if it is a bluff. If it's not a bluff, then eventually they'll just say, okay, I'll take that because that's probably a pretty good payday for them.
It's a lot of strategy. Like we know a guy, he had a 6 unit he got one of the tenants, he worked with him, we got him displaced. He renovated that unit, and then he brought all the other tenants through the unit, like a wine and cheese, and he had a checklist. And basically he said, look, Andrew, this is the kitchen we can install. If you want that in yours, it's $300 more a month. Right. And you have a checklist. You go, yeah, I'd like new floors. I'd like a new bathroom. Right. And each one has a corresponding cost on a per month basis.
Right.
You check it off. So was like, he showed them like a model unit.
Yeah.
And then just check off what they want. Right.
So he got the rents off that way.
Yeah.
And can you do that? Like that's permissible?
So, well, if any of the tenants actually go, from my understanding, to the tribunal, they can go backwards on it. But again, are they going to? Like,
yeah, there's going to be, it's like the return rate with goods. Like people know there's like only a refund rate of like under 5%. So even though you know it's going to be brutal when they do, you just like, hey, we'll do 100% or 120% money back guarantee.
That was a really good example. Yes. Yeah. In his experience, it was great. 4 of the 5 that were remaining all took them up on varying degrees. And then the last tenant actually couldn't afford it. And then they ended up taking a cash for keys payout at the end. And it was a fair sum, and everybody was happy. All right, so there's always these unique strategies.
My big thing is just people and people. Like just have real conversations with people. It's just I go back to that scale ability, like with so much going on. Like before kids, I was way more able to like mentally put my head around that. And like, you know, evening calls and all that stuff. And it's just like now, like I just don't want to do that.
I'm very empathetic. I'm in the same boat, right? But if you can, you have. So again, like this whole sheet is only just filters, right? So what are we looking at? Yes, we're predicting a full turn. So we're not trying to say that's going to happen. We're just trying to show you the scenarios and building out filters. But
valuation difference between what you think we could get it for up front versus what it's going to be worth at 256 a door. What's that work out to times 12 units? Like we're talking a lift of over $1 million.
Yeah.
So that's the carrot.
71%. It's 1.2 million and change lift. But here's an example. Okay, so we go 30,000 a unit in renos, 20,000 a unit in cash for keys, $100,000 contingency. Okay. We predict a 12-month turnaround time from start to finish. Right. So some negative carry in there. You under the old CMHC program, you're exiting and leaving only 62,000 and change in the deal.
Not bad,
right? So
and on what cash flow you're going to get positive 2,000 a month.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you're a 1-2 debt cover.
You're going to have a pretty high cash on cash return at that
for
point.
Sure. And then you're 4.5%
almost 50% cash on cash return.
Yeah.
So 40. We'll call it 40% conservatively.
Yeah, pretty fantastic, right? So. And again, we're 4.5%. I'm not modeling the new MLI Select.
You're just doing the traditional.
Standard, that's the way I always do it. So, you know, again, this is all trying to figure out risk assessment, right? Like, again, are you going to get all 12? Probably not. So we can work our way backwards. You know, if you can get 9 of them, what does that look like? 8. But the idea is it's still a really good strategy and solution for people that are willing to go through that exercise, right?
I mean, starting off, if you asked me in like 2014 if I would have taken this project on, I would say 100%.
100%. Yeah.
I would call everyone myself. I would do it all. Even 2017, I still would have.
Yeah. But here's the deal. You do too many of these and then you age like the president. Right?
Exactly. Exactly. That's how you get jaded. You do too many of them. You can do 1 or 2, but then you have to find a way to delegate the task. Like find good property manager that gets how you speak and assign them to do that. Because as you fill your head with so many things, there'll just be less room for this type of thing.
And like I had a client call yesterday, and his whole model. He stays between 10 and 30 units. This is what he does, and it works for him, right? He's not jaded. He does it. He was laughing at my 20,000 cash for keys negotiation. He's like, you don't need nearly that much, but
if you put it in that way and it works, then
it works. And his model is just like, you know, I do 1 or 2 at a time. I don't get overwhelmed, and he's good at it. And that he recognizes the tenant discussions are kind of the most arduous. It's not the construction piece. So he's like, look, I spend the necessary time to do that, to care about what they need to get that for them. Yeah. Business case.
If you can empathize with them, people and people, I mean, my experience as a landlord was always that me interacting with my tenants was always far better than me using a property manager. Like the outcomes, the relationships, the damage or lack thereof, everything was better if I connected with my tenants myself.
For sure.
as much as that's kind of a pain. It becomes a job.
Yeah. So I had 30 on there. I don't know why, so I just fixed it. But you can see if you start building it in, like these structures, these models work. You'd be hyperbolic here, but you walk around with a briefcase of $20,000 for each tenant.
Yeah.
You're probably going to make
You're going to get
good headway. You're going to get
and I think to the point you just made, like not trying to do them all at once, so you actually can sell it to the tenants. Hey, like I may not have this offer for you in the future. I'm doing 2 right now, and you can bet 2 out of 12 are going to take me up on this.
Yeah,
and say this is my number. So if you want it, great. Like that's a lot of money. Let's not kid ourselves. That's a lot of money. But I understand the dynamics here and what's going on. But if I go to the next one and this is no longer available, then it's no longer available.
Especially if you come in like, again, negotiations. But if you come in with, I have 20,000, this is your take it or leave it. It's,
there isn't a negotiation here.
Right. Not that you have to take it today, but, think about it for the next 2 weeks, but that number's not changing.
Yeah.
We're going to get a lot.
But it could go away. It could go away if 2 other people say,
well, I know a group, what they end up doing is their negotiation is, look, we have a certain pot of money, right? And it's basically first come, first serve. And that they're not lying. That's actually the case for the way they structure these. And they make those negotiations. They have a limit per unit based on what their spread to market is. They don't tell them that. And they're genuine. It's like they get phone calls all the time. They're like, hey, we'd like to renegotiate. It's like, have that conversation. Like we've refinanced. The opportunity's gone.
Yeah.
Right. The challenge with this is the way we like structuring a lot of these deals right now is the opportunity to go to CMHC, hold it, and then start working through tenants. Because that way you're positive cash flow. You don't have the pressure of running in the red. Yeah. Not the case here. Right. Your loan to value on CMHC is going to be abysmal. So you're going to have that.
You need a bridge pretty much here.
And you need that runway. And you got to understand that it's going to take you, you need the time to negotiate, right? When you're staring down the barrel of like a few months.
No, and you can't, right? Yeah. Because if where you're in a bad position on this is if you need to turn all 12 in that year. That's where you probably 100%. Will use the 20 grand.
Yeah.
Whereas if you could just do a couple and then find a way to make your numbers work and model it out that way, then you can keep adding, gravy. Everything else is the cherry on top, so to speak. Because if you can make it work with just turning a couple, okay, my numbers are okay, we can be at a reasonably close to break even. Now we got time to work through the rest.
Well said. Yeah. And that's why we're very entrenched on who our clients are using on the mortgage side, right? As long as they're experts, good, because that's where it's going to come in handy. They're going to run the models on, if you do 3, what's it going to look like? So how many do you need to get for us to do X, Y, and Z with real world numbers? Because then you can make that risk assessment. Then you can look at it, right? This is just a filter because we looked at 1,500 deals last year to say which of these are even worth talking about. This one's definitely an interesting one. Yeah.
So London, Ontario, purpose built, 12 units. That's not small. That's a good portfolio piece to throw in and keep building on.
It's a really nice looking building. It's in a good area, and there's no major capex. So, price point's it's there. Just legacy tenants that might need some cash for keys.
Might need some cash for keys. All right. So yes, by no means a deal for somebody who's not ready to pull up their sleeves and work, have the means, both knowledge-wise and financial, to make it work. But there's a potential $1 million in lift. So that's the carrot. Do you like it? That's certainly not for everyone, but an interesting deal to talk about.
Yeah, not boring. Not boring real estate.
No, not boring real estate. Breaking the theme for today. Anything else we should share on this one? Or
no, just as always, if you want to join up to our
Insiders List,
thank you.
Yeah. The Insiders List, it'll be in the show notes and below the video if you're watching on YouTube. And also, if you made it this far, make sure you show the channel some love. Share the show with somebody you think it might help, because we like to grow.
Yeah.
Put a lot of time in here, and we just want to see this show keep reaching more people. So really appreciate that. Thanks, guys. We will see you again next week.